Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor and here are the big headlines. Countdown starts for voting in the second phase of Bihar elections on Friday. Campaigning scheduled to end today evening. Packed schedule for President in Israel. Pranab Mukherjee to address Parliament in their rare honor for visiting dignitary. Bombay High Court to hear a bunch of petitions challenging beef ban legislation in Maharashtra. Hearings to continue for 3 days. Russian-made Buk missile strike felled Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 in eastern Ukraine. Dutch safety board says the 298 victims were unconscious when they died. And India take on unbeaten South Africa in the second one-day match at Indore. Spinner Harbhajan Singh likely to replace injured R. Ashwin. Well, first news coming in from the poll-bound state of Bihar. Well, campaigning for the second phase of the Bihar elections is drawing to a close today. Now, both the sides, the Mahagathbandhan and the NDA camp, are sparing no efforts in reaching out to the voters before the voting day on Friday.
Ahead of the close of campaigning for the second phase on Wednesday, the main rivals have organized a spate of rallies in Bihar. For the Grand Alliance, Chief Minister Nitish Kumar is addressing 5 rallies, while his chief ally Lalu Prasad is campaigning in 8 places. On Tuesday, both the NDA and the Grand Alliance addressed rallies in Rohtas district, where they targeted each other.
हमारे यहाँ तक 4 लाख रुपया लेते दिखा और सब कार्रवाई हुई, और आपके यहाँ जिसके यहाँ 2 करोड़ रुपया नकदी धराया उसको आपने मंत्री बनाया। आप किस मुंह से ये बात बोलते हैं? क्या हुआ व्यापम घोटाले में मध्य प्रदेश में न जाने गाजर मूली की तरह कितने लोग मर रहे हैं।
जहां जहां भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार बनी है, किसान, अति पिछड़ा, दलित, महादलित, सबके लिए विकास के दरवाजे खुल गए। जहां जहां भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार बनी है, वहां पर एक बार जनता भारतीय जनता पार्टी को चुनती है, बाद में बार बार भारतीय जनता पार्टी ही चुनकर आती है।
The second phase elections will be held for 32 seats in 6 districts on Friday. 458 candidates are in the fray. 32 of them are women. 10 of these seats are in Gaya, 7 in Rohtas, 6 in Aurangabad, 4 in Kaimur, 3 in Jahanabad and 2 in Arwal, Makdampur and Imamganj are reserved SC seats. Hindustani Awami Morcha chief Jitin Ram Manjhi is contesting from both these seats. Meanwhile, campaigning is in full swing for the third phase. Voting for 50 seats in 6 districts will be held on 28th of October. The fate of Lalu Prasad's sons Tej Pratap and Tejaswi Yadav will be decided in Mahua and Raghopur. Polling for the 4th and 5th phases will be taking place on 1st and 5th of November, while the votes will be counted on the 8th of November. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, on to some other news. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will host family members of Subhash Chandra Bose at his official residence 7 RCR today. In his Mann Ki Baat program on 20th of September, Modi had said that he had extended the invitation to Netaji's relatives. Now, over 50 members of Netaji's family from across the world are expected to meet Modi today. They are expected to seek a declassification of Netaji files with the centre after the West Bengal government released 64 such files. Now, the set of documents released by the Bengal government indicate that the founder of Azad Hind Fauj may have survived the crash. An eminent Punjabi writer and Padma Shri recipient Dalip Kaur Tiwana is the latest in the long list of writers to return her award to protest against the growing intolerance in the country. In a letter to Centre, Tiwana said that she was returning the honour that she received in 2004 because of the growing intolerance and communalism that is on the rise in the country. She said that the attack on those who stand up for truth was a disgrace to the country. Kannada writer Professor Rahmat Tarikeri has also returned his Sahitya Academy Award, protesting the killing of rationalists M.M. Kalburgi and Narendra Dabholkar and Govind Pansare. Now, with Krishna Sopti and Arun Joshi also joining the ranks of writers returning their awards, at least 25 writers have now followed this form of protest. Meanwhile, the Sangeet Natak Academy chair has called this form of protest misguided reaction. Now, Shekhar Sen said this would in turn affect the autonomous nature of these organizations.
आजकल जो माहौल चल रहा है इसमें अवार्ड क्या क्या मायने रखता है, तो मेरे मन में गिल्ट पैदा हो गया कि भाई ये गलत किया है मैंने। जिस साहित्य अकेडमी ने मुझे सम्मानित किया है वही साहित्य अकेडमी अवार्ड विनर मारे जा रहे हैं।
जो दादरी कांड वापरा है, जिसमें एक मोहम्मद खलाक के नाम को एक समूह ने कत्ल कर दिया एक अफवाह के पर, जो है हमारे देश की जो अखंडता है, धर्मनिरपेक्षता है, जो है उस पर अटैक है।
मेरे मन में यही कामना है, यही मेरा सपना है, इसमें यही आशा छुपी हुई है कि साहित्य अकादमी को सियासतदानों के भय से या किसी और शक्ति के भय से कभी खामोश नहीं होना चाहिए।
मैं चाहूँगा कि वो अपना विरोध प्रदेश की सरकार को, प्रदेश के गृह मंत्री को, प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री को करें, देश के गृह मंत्री को करें, देश के प्रधानमंत्री को लिखें कि हम चिंतित हैं, साहित्य अकादमी को लिखें, साहित्य अकादमी के मंत्री होने के नाते मुझे लिखें। मैं उनकी आवाज़ बनना चाहता हूं, उनकी आवाज़ में आवाज़ मिलाकर हम उसका प्रतिरोध करेंगे और प्रयास करेंगे कि ऐसी घटनाएं ना हो।
The Supreme Court has given the government 3 weeks to make a decision on the Uniform Civil Code. Responding to a PIL filed by a Christian man, the apex court bench said whether the code is implemented or not, the decision must be reached by the next hearing.
Law Minister Sadananda Gowda has said that a final decision on bringing a uniform civil code would be taken only after wider consultations. This comes after the Supreme Court gave the government 3 weeks to come clear on the issue. In a stern remark, the Supreme Court asked the government to take a decision soon on whether it wants to enforce a uniform civil code. Currently, different laws govern inheritance and divorce for different communities. A uniform civil code aims to end the unvarying standards of religious laws and bring them under the same yardstick in matters of law.
Uniform civil code doesn't mean that the Hindu personal laws should be made applicable to Muslims and Christians also. Uniform civil code would mean that even the good things which are there in the Muslim laws, that should be brought into the main law and made applicable to others.
I feel that it is about time that the nation is ruled by one law and there's clarity in the law. The ambiguity, this ambiguity is not an acceptable thing in law, and you cannot have people being governed by their own customs, which are contrary to established principles of law.
Even though the government has sought wider consultations, creating a consensus would be a Herculean task.
Have we really prepared a rough draft where we can be called in, all the stakeholders representing all different religions, come together and study it? If there is any kind of disagreements, we can always put forward our concerns, our feelings, so that we can work out something for common good. Because here it's a question of common good for everyone, welfare of the country, welfare of the whole society.
देखिए, हम लोग तो और तमाम मुस्लिम संगठन यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड के खिलाफ ही रहे हैं। भारत जैसे देश में जो अलग अलग रीति रिवाज के लोग हैं और मुख्तलिफ जो है धर्मों मजहबों को मानते हैं, यहाँ जो है यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड जो है अननेचुरल है।
देखिए, यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड अगर आता है तो बहुत से ऐसे आज चीजें हैं जो कई और समाजों को, हिंदू समाज को, जैन समाज को और समाजों को आज जो सहूलियतें मिलती है वो भी सब हट जाएंगी। इसमें अगर सरकार और कोर्ट व्यापक चर्चा करे और उसमें कोई निष्कर्ष निकले तो बेहतर होगा।
The Supreme Court made the observation while hearing a PIL filed by a Delhi resident seeking the waiver of the mandatory separation period of 2 years before a Christian couple can file for divorce by mutual consent. For other religions, the separation period is 1 year. The PIL claims the law is biased against the Christian community. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And news from Maharashtra now, where the Bombay High Court will hear a bunch of petitions challenging the beef ban legislation in the state. The petitions will be heard for the next 3 days. The President had granted a sanction to Maharashtra Animal Representation Act in February 2015. The act banned the slaughter of cows in 1976. However, recent amendments prohibited slaughter of bulls and bullocks as well. According to the amended act, the sale of bulls and bullocks in the state is an offence punishable with 5-year jail term, while its possession is punishable with 1-year jail. Now, while hearing the petition in April, the High Court refused to grant an interim stay on the law on the issue of possession of beef. And what else is lined up for the day? Let's take a look in the day ahead. The Supreme Court will hear petitions on linking Aadhaar with the social and disbursal of subsidies of welfare schemes today. The RBI, SEBI and UIDAI have all sought clarification on its 11th of August interim order to this effect. Chief Justice H.L. Dattu set up a 5-member constitutional bench to go into the constitutional validity of Aadhaar. On 11th of August, a 3-member bench passed an interim order restricting the use of Aadhaar for providing subsidy on food grains and kerosene. The Supreme Court will hear the Haryana government's petition to revoke its stay on Class 10 pass qualification for the Panchayat election contestants. The Supreme Court had earlier rejected the petition for setting up a constitution bench of at least 5 judges to go into the validity of Haryana's new law. The Gujarat High Court will hear a petition challenging the recent ordinance promulgated to delay local body elections by 3 months. The petition says the ordinance puts the electoral's right as defined under Section 79 of the Representation of the People's Act 1951 at the sole discretion of the State Election Commission. The All India Organization of Chemists and Druggists has called for a nationwide chemist strikes from today. It is demanding action from the centre against illegal online sale of medicines. The body is opposing the move to regularize sales of medicine through internet. A Delhi court will record evidence on a criminal complaint seeking action against Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal for allegedly exhorting voters to take bribe from Congress and BJP and vote for AAP in the February assembly polls. The complainant sought Kejriwal's prosecution for allegedly offering or accepting bribe. And in more news from the national capital, where the dengue death toll has reached 41 in the national capital. 10,683 cases have been recorded so far, making it the worst outbreak in the last 2 decades. Dengue cases tripled to 3,077 this week alone. Meanwhile, a second death due to swine flu was also reported in Delhi, with a 60-year-old woman succumbing to the H1N1 virus. The Delhi government has decided to double its hospital beds to step up preparedness against swine flu, which experts say will see a rise as the temperature takes a dip. And in Breakfast News, we'll take a very short break. Stay with us.
The poll juggernaut rolls out in Bihar. Modi's NDA takes on Nitish's Grand Alliance. Who will win this most important election battle since 2014? Watch Verdict 2015, Monday through Saturday on Rajya Sabha Television.
Welcome back. Now crossing over from Palestine after an overnight visit there, President Pranab Mukherjee arrived in Israel, where a packed schedule awaits him today. The president's engagement will include an address to Israel's parliament, Knesset. Mukherjee will also be conferred an honorary degree by the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, while President Reuven Rivlin will host a banquet today. Now, yesterday, starting his 3-day visit to Israel, President Pranab Mukherjee insisted on peace and stability in the Middle East. He proposed a framework to boost ties with Palestine during his speech at the Al-Quds University in Jerusalem. He also offered $5 million as budgetary support to Palestine.
President Pranab Mukherjee has reiterated that India seeks peace in the Middle East amid tension in West Bank. Clashes continue between Palestine and Israeli forces after 3 Israelis were injured on Monday in 2 stabbing attacks in Jerusalem. So far, 4 Israelis have been killed in stabbing attacks in the past 10 days and dozens injured. The president said that India identifies the crisis to be the center of Arab-Israel conflict. He said it is in India's interest that the region achieves peace and stability. The president was conferred an honorary doctorate by Al-Quds University in Jerusalem on the second and final day of his visit to this country. Earlier, he held talks with his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah, where he reiterated India's economic and political support for the Palestinians. The president has handed over a check of $5 million to the Palestinian government as a budgetary support. Both countries have also announced 5 projects worth $17.79 million aimed at capacity building in the Palestinian territories. The projects include a techno-park, an institute for diplomacy, and an Indian-Palestine Center for Excellence in Gaza. President arrived in Tel Aviv later for his 3-day visit to Israel. He is expected to sign a double taxation treaty beside holding talks with his Israeli counterpart Reuven Rivlin and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
There are 2 major MOUs that we're about to sign. The first one is the prevention of double taxation. And the second one is cooperation in culture and culture exchange of delegations between the 2 sides.
The president will also address to Israeli parliament, Knesset, which is a rare honor for any visiting leader. He will give a speech to around 125 members. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, India, Japan and the United States will kickstart their joint naval exercises in the Bay of Bengal today. The United States and India annually hold naval drills in Malabar to sharpen skills. But it is the first year that Japan will take part as a permanent member rather than a foreign invitee. The US is deploying aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt and a nuclear-powered submarine. Now, Indian Navy said that it will cover the full spectrum of maneuvers in the week-long exercises. The trilateral exercises marks a significant turning point for the deepening security partnership among the 3 nations. Well, on to our top international story. The final report into what caused MH17 to crash over Ukraine last year has concluded that the plane was indeed hit by a Russian missile. Now, Dutch Safety Board said that forensic evidence proved that the missile exploded just near the cockpit, killing all 298 people on board. Russia called the report biased, while the Dutch Prime Minister says the priority now is to prosecute those responsible.
A Russian-made Buk missile downed Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 over eastern Ukraine. According to the findings of the Dutch Safety Board, the missile hit the front left of the plane. Further, all 298 people on board were unconscious when they died.
The report is out, and I want whoever is involved is being penalized.
But because of the impact of the missile, the explosion, the confusion and everything else, it sounds as though everybody died peacefully.
While the board doesn't have the authority to apportion blame, its officials say that pro-Russian rebels were in charge of the area from where the missile was fired. Ukraine and Western nations contend that the missile was launched by Russian-backed rebels. However, Russia has debunked the findings. Russian state arms producer Almaz Antey, that makes the Buk air missile system, said the missile in question exists in Ukraine's arsenal and is not used by Russian military. The report also says airspace over eastern Ukraine should have been closed.
But now we have objective and transparent report mastered by the very best experts and specialists on the basis of extremely meticulous and thorough investigations. Now, what we need next is, of course, criminal investigation report, which should show the chain of command, which should expose the perpetrators.
Полностью опровергли выводы голландской комиссии о типе ракеты и месте запуска. Сегодня мы можем однозначно сказать, и в презентации это покажем, что если Боинг 777 малайзийских авиалиний был сбит зенитно-ракетным комплексом БУК, то поразить.
The plane flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur crashed at the height of the conflict between Ukrainian troops and pro-Russian separatists in 2014. Most of the victims were Dutch. Dutch Prime Minister has demanded Russia cooperate with the criminal investigation into the disaster. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now news from Syria, where after a close shave for US and Russian aircraft flying in the Syria war zone, the two sides have agreed to hold new talks on safety of their parallel air campaigns. Now, combat aircrafts from both the nations came within miles of each other on Saturday. Officials from both militaries said that the aircrafts entered the same battle space and were in visual contact with each other. The US Secretary of Defense Ash Carter said that he expects a deal soon. Russia too welcomed the move and said that it had updated proposals to be discussed during the video conference. Now, Washington has blamed Russian planes of repeatedly breaking air patrols and coming close to American unmanned drones. Now, Russia has maintained that it stands defending its air campaign in Syria.
As a result of Russian airstrikes, the UN recently announced that they've had to cease humanitarian operations in Syria because of the danger posed by these Russian airstrikes. Nancy, I find these airstrikes to be reckless and indiscriminate. They are doing having exactly the opposite effect of what Russia has claimed that they want to do. They've claimed publicly that they want to fight ISIL. In reality, these reckless, these indiscriminate, these irresponsible airstrikes have had the effect and will have the effect only of prolonging the suffering of the Syrian people.
With respect to the Russians in Syria, I did say in my statement, and this is important, we're making some progress on the particular issue of professional conduct with respect to Russia in the air. And I expect those discussions they're making progress, and I expect them to conclude sometimes. If they have not concluded yet, we're meeting again shortly, and it'll continue, but I expect that to conclude shortly. We're not able at this time to associate ourselves more broadly with Russia's approach.
And more international news and updates in World Wrap. The Islamic State group confirmed the killing of its second-in-command in a US airstrike. In an audio recording, a spokesperson of the terrorist group said that it is not long before the killers of Abu al-Mutaz al-Qureshi are harmed. But he did not say in what circumstances Qureshi died. The White House said Qureshi, whose real name is Fadil Ahmed al-Hayali, was killed on 18th of August in Mosul. 3 Israelis were killed and over 20 injured in incidents of gun and knife violence in Jerusalem and central Israel. A Palestinian was also killed in clashes with Israeli forces in the West Bank city of Bethlehem. Now, Arab League nations in an emergency meeting in Cairo deplored Israeli violence in Jerusalem. ICC is mulling investigating Russian and Georgian forces over possible war crimes. The investigations relate to the 5-day conflict in 2008 centered on South Ossetia, a breakaway region of Georgia. The ICC prosecutor Fatah Bensouda said that she had the evidence suggesting South Ossetian forces killed up to 113 ethnic Georgian civilians. Both sides have also been accused of killing peacekeepers, which is a war crime. US Democratic presidential candidates are all set to take the stage in their first debate in Las Vegas. The front-runner Hillary Clinton is seeking to mix a firm grasp of policy with a more personal touch at the debate. Clinton is still the favorite to win her party's nomination despite her declining lead against her top adversary, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. The commentators expect economic issues like income inequality to be among the main topics discussed in the debate. Author Marlon James has bagged Man Booker Prize 2015. James won the prize for his novel inspired by the attempted assassination of Bob Marley in 1970s. The chair of the judges, Michael Wood, described the novel, A Brief History of 7 Killings, as the most exciting book on the shortlist. Now set across 3 decades, the novel explores the turbulent world of Jamaican gangs and politics. He is the first Jamaican author to win £50,000 award. Well, on to sports now, and India will take on unbeaten South Africa in the second one-day match at Indore today. Well, after a close 5-run defeat in the first ODI, Team India are yet to taste victory since South Africa's arrival in the country. It will be a tough match for skipper MS Dhoni, who will look for answers to answer really his critics. Now, spinner Harbhajan Singh is likely to join the probable 11 after R. Ashwin was sidelined due to an injury. The Indian batting order is likely to remain the same.
We should have upped the ante a little bit more in the middle, but again, we probably lost only 1 wicket and we were in good position. But at the end, we all know what happened. But it's part and parcel. These things like this can happen. There's no excuses. We want to strive hard as a team, and if we're striving to be number one, we cannot make these kind of mistakes.
All right, let's get you some more sporting action now in Sports Beat. Indian football team's poor run continued as they slumped to their 5th consecutive defeat in the 2018 FIFA World Cup qualifying round. The men in blue lost 0-3 to Oman in an away game in Muscat. India stayed at the bottom of the table, having conceded as many as 12 goals in their 5 games. Former world champion Vishwanathan Anand ended the World Rapid Championship on a positive note. Anand scored 4 points out of 5 games on the final day, and he finished 25th after tying for the 13th spot in the final standings. The 3-day event concluded with Magnus Carlsen retaining the title. World number 3 Roger Federer crashed out of the Shanghai Masters after a shock 7-6, 2-6, 6-3 loss to Albert Ramos Vinolas in his opening match. The defending champion looked rusty against the 70th ranked qualifier, and despite levelling the match after the second set, he succumbed in the decider to a single break off the serve. The Netherlands failed to reach the European Championship for the first time since 1984 as they lost 3-2 to the 10-man Czech Republic in their final qualifier. The Dutch needed to win the game, but 2 first half goals ended their hopes of Euro 2016. Turkey, however, secured a place in the finals in France as the best third-placed team. Well, that's all in this edition of Breakfast News. Thanks so much for your time.